I'm Chris Hayes. The Homeland Security Secretary was on the southern border today, tackling the humanitarian crisis unfolding there. This just as he's issued a dire warning to Congress, two key border agencies will start to run out of money by mid-August, thanks to the rising cost of dealing with the surge of unaccompanied immigrant children showing up every day. Jay Johnson visited the border facilities in New Mexico and Texas after announcing this week that the total number of unaccompanied minors apprehended at the border could break 90,000 by the end of the fiscal year, just 2.5 months away. As of this week, 57,000 immigrant children have been apprehended since October alone. As Congress considers the president's request for $3.7 billion to tackle the crisis, there's talk now of a compromise to change the law governing the treatment of unaccompanied children from Central America, streamlining how they are processed. It's a change the Obama administration supports.
We're asking, this will be in a separate submission, for the ability to treat unaccompanied kids from the Central American countries in the same way we would someone from a contiguous country, so that we have the ability to offer them voluntary return, which the kids from Mexico do accept.
Republican Senator John Cornyn and Democratic Congressman Henry Cuellar, my guest from the other night, both from Texas, plan to go one step further, introducing a bill next week that would completely undo certain protections for unaccompanied minors from Central America. But a rising chorus of Democratic legislators is raising concerns over the due process rights of these children who are, after all, fleeing some of the worst violence in the world outside of war zones, which means they may be able to apply for asylum.
They get their day in court, as the law mandates. I plan to support the president's budget request, but we must make sure we do not short-circuit justice for the children. And I think all of us agree that that is a top priority.
Some Democrats are even calling for a change in the way these children are designated, with New Jersey Congressman Rush Holt saying, quote, they are refugees. That's how we can start, by using the appropriate language. Joining me now, Congressman Dan Kildee, Democrat from Michigan. He's facing this issue in his home district right now. Congressman, do you agree with your fellow Congressman Rush Holt that we should be calling them refugees?
Well, the term sure fits. I mean, I call them children. I think too often we take terminology to try to dehumanize what is essentially a humanitarian crisis. Children who are in danger, who are seeking some kind of refuge in the United States. So in that sense, I guess refugee might be the proper term.
Do you share the same concerns as Congressman Gutierrez and other advocates and other members of Congress that the legislation that is being put forth would strip away the possibility that these children would have to have their day in court to claim that they are, in fact, they meet the legal requirements for asylum in the U.S., given what they are fleeing?
I am concerned about it. I do think it makes sense to hasten the process of making the decision about the cases, about each case on an individual basis. But I think it's a dangerous precedent to start thinking that we were wrong in 2008 when almost the entire Congress and President Bush enacted a law that was intended to protect children who are at risk of being used as in sex trafficking or at risk of great violence. I mean, it has been a long part of our history to protect children from danger. And that's what we're talking about here. And I think we need to keep that in mind.
Congressman, you're from Michigan, and yet this issue has managed to erupt in your very own district. What's going on there?
Well, there's a facility in my district, in a rural part of my district, that is being considered as one of the locations for temporary housing. And, you know, unfortunately, the loudest voices have been the voices that are raising all sorts of, I think, unfounded claims and concerns about what would happen in our community if this facility was used to house these young people for a temporary period of time. Hopefully, calmer voices will prevail. And this gets to, I think, what is really a problem here. Unfortunately, some members of the government, some members of Congress particularly, have been using extreme speech in the context of the president's actions, calling his actions unlawful. There are consequences to using that sort of speech. They may know what they're doing. They're trying to create a narrative that helps them in the elections. But what they're also doing is whipping up the sentiments of people who don't really understand the law, don't really understand that it's political theater that they're engaged in, these Republicans that are using this hateful speech. But then you have citizens who don't think about politics every day, who are concerned, in some cases for legitimate reasons, but are conflating this situation with a larger and very necessary conversation about immigration in general. And it's really frightening to see them whipped up over something that is really not the kind of concern, shouldn't be the kind of concern that they're talking about. These are children who need to be protected. Who could be against that?
Finally, the House Appropriations Chair, Hal Rogers, Republican, has said it's too much money, speaking of the White House request. Do you think this is going to die in the House?
I hope not. I mean, if in the Senate $30 billion is not too much money to create an army at the southern border, $3.7 billion to really mitigate this problem and prevent the need for more border security, it makes an awful lot of sense to me. I think it's the right thing, it's the right amount, and I think we should proceed on it.
Congressman Dan Kildee, thank you very much.